so you could figure out all the, because like everything that I'm talking about here is all ratioed length, relationships, distances, angular relationships and stuff, because everything that you're doing there, right, is taking the place of, like, for instance, in the geometry coil and what you were discussing, right? It's taking the place of all those complex interactions, and it's doing it by virtue of these ratios and relationships.
All
Bernie,
right.
what's going on,
Are
man?
you guys ready for how it all connects together and how it is all VPVS fusion that I have called it, and it's come up with, which stands for Valence Shell Phase Shift Fusion. And the RAV was the ultimate connecting of all of it, and it's the field within the field within the field within the field. It's 4 fields of energy waves, and discussed a little bit of this with you, Nathan, the other day here, and that I got it when I was interacting with the quantum fields of information that I was able to pull it down from. And the first force, the first field, that dot in the middle, it's your magnetic, but it's your nuclear magnetic. The second field around is your acoustic, which is this sound vibration right here that you see. And then the third is photonic, your photon, your light fields. And when you have those 3 together, you then get the 4th plasma field, the outer strongest shell that is the ionized or plasma ion density of absorbing light, electricity, sound, everything all at once, and contained within that gives you the actual stable particle of whatever energy densities you have within. And it's something still putting together, but it's something that is getting verified by a lot of different sources. And why? Well, for those that haven't heard or don't know, I'm actually going to be sitting next to Nathan, poking him physically and harassing him and working in the lab.
I'm super jealous, bro. Not fair.
Hey, maybe I'll come to you next, Joe, or you
Hey,
can.
listen, you're always welcome.
But so I'm going to be shipping a bunch of my electrodes as well from my electrolysis reactors that are pretty much just the exact sort of electrodes you guys are using in RAV, but a little bit more complex with the field within the field within the field, and the center core of usually it's magnetic, right? So the core is magnetic going down. That's the big thing, right? So you have the core of that magnetic down into, then you have the acoustic coming off of it at 90 degrees, but then off of that you have the photonic light, and
So,
the final
before we get too far off of it, and I just want to say that what you're saying, I wholeheartedly agree with. And what I actually love is the fact that you have this acoustic barrier built into it, because that's exactly what I was trying to relay when I was describing the interlayer torsion that occurs, right? So whenever you have multiple layers of something in resonance with each other, um, they they end up in a state of laminicity. Laminicity.
Exactly.
In their interaction, but
You're
there's
talking
still
about
this
phase
boundary.
conjugation. That's phase
It is
conjugation.
phase conjugation, but right. So you have this interaction between the torsion layers, which is an acoustic component. It is a vibrational acoustic component that exists in this, that is part of the magnetism, and because it's based on octaves, as opposed to pure resonance, there's a oil and water separation of it, and it's that very interaction of that acoustic relationship between the torsion layers, okay, that it's frictionless, but still creates a bound that is neither what it is on this side or that side. It's it's slightly different and still into, and that is the nature of the bifurcation of the layers. Each layer you go, and each layer being different and separated out as far as its frequency bands, right, makes total sense as to why it breaks out exactly like you said, and I wholeheartedly agree. And by virtue of what you call what you're describing, I know that that's what the point of Rav um, has been, right? And it's been something that I've been preaching from day one, which all had to do about valence electrons, that electron
Valence
availability, and
electrons,
no,
right? So just pause for 1 second. Valence shell phase shift fusion. So what are the valence shells? That's what we're looking at right here, the electron shells and the dimensions that they go from one another, and that is these one field within the field within the field within the fields of the supposed electron shell or electrons. Where you can find, no, this is the energy densities of these field wave interactions,
right.
and that you have your magnetic, you have your acoustic, you have your photonic, and then you have your plasma
And that's
within
all
them.
because of the band, the band that it falls in frequency wise. That's what that comes down to. It's interesting because what it turns into, and this is sort of what I've been trying to say all along, under ideal circumstances with uh, this valence electron transmuted property, right? It's like if you were to be cooking a vegetable stock, and you put it on the stove, and then all of a sudden it starts growing, carrots and celery and onions, you know, from the stock. It's like a reverse, what we would consider from the matter perspective, right? A reverse engineering of that which it was made. And because you're dealing with single loose valence electrons, technically, what you could potentially be producing
No,
would
that's
be
the thing.
based on
It's
the
not
weight, based
actual
on the frequency.
electrons. There's no such thing as the electron. The electron field is these specific frequencies, these resonant frequencies
It is the
in those
resonant frequencies.
specific
I'm trying to talk
Hertzian
regular language,
frequencies.
Bernie.
Yeah,
You know,
but
I
what,
happen to, it's all these isolated portions of potential in sequence, in resonant sequence with one another. But the
you
fact is
got it.
that it's the fact that it's isolated. And this goes so far back to shit I've been saying that really came out of left field that nobody understood when I was saying it, which is what's the creation of the energy in the first place? Well, if you chop the bottom part off of a node of a waveform, what happens? It starts to tumble, doesn't it? What do electrons do? They got spin, don't they? Right?
Exactly. The
So
spin
the,
state.
the angular interference of two waveforms are deterministic and where in their amplitude lines of their deconstructive interference, where they band off, that creates the electron in the first place, or any
The
other
electron
fundamental
shell.
particle that's described. So, if you have one band at a certain frequency and amplitude interacting at a certain, y axis with another waveform, you get this deconstructive interference to different portions. You blast a lot of it out into scalar that's like just lost potential,
Phase
or
conjugation, and when it
it is
goes
phase
into that
conjugation, right?
scalar, that is how it goes from one band to the other. And it's specifically these there's the questioner saying it's all oscillation, and it's absolutely all oscillation, and it's light and sound oscillation from the original magnetic, which is the nuclei. And so the plasma, I was talking to Dr. Ott True, and prayers that he was not falsely convicted and thrown back into jail for 6 months for coming on my show and talking and giving this information. But I was like, there's actually these. I was like, there's these four resonant frequencies, and he starts laughing. He's like, that's just false. There's just the one. And then I gave him the plasma one, which is the bigger one. He's like, that's the only one. It's the nuclear atomic oscillation resonance. And I was like, yes, it is. That's correct, but that's the big one. And then he's like, and then he's like, waits for a second. I let him explain, and then he's like, well, I guess, yeah, there is actually supposed to be this other frequency that keeps it standing. I'm like, there you go, now you got it. And that is the acoustic. And then I'm like, now what about the radiation and decay of the two? And he's like, oh my god. I'm like, there's the other two parts. And it was quite the moment, and I've got his papers, so we're going to be connecting it all together with that. And not just that, there was some sort of quantum magic, and I was able to, through the ether, quantum ether, we will say, get the specific kilohertz and terahertz frequencies of all four bands for each of these valence shells, for the magnetic nuclear, the acoustic, the photon, and the plasma. And I was able to get it for hydrogen, for gold, for silver, for copper, for iron, for zinc, for tungsten, and for lead to start. And that is a whole lot of really specific information that when I'm there, we will be able to run simulations and tests within the next 2 months that actually prove this without a shadow of a doubt. And when I stated a few months ago about, I called the episodes called the H power of H, let there be light. And it was the H bomb, the hydrogen bomb reaction that I was stating I've engineered around the whole time, and that now I legitimately have the 4 frequency hertz of each of these bands, that when you put them together, you will get the runaway thermonuclear hydrogen bomb reaction. And I do not ever want to cause that, and anyone on Earth is retarded if they do, because it's runaway action that literally splits all water and water vapor into the hydrogen bomb explosion. And that's supposedly reportedly what happened when humanity did test the hydrogen bomb, and that's why all the UFOs had to come in and stop that reaction, is how all the whistleblower testimony goes. And that I needed these frequencies to never ever combine them all together. And it's that if for some reason I die and my dead man switch goes out, and then everyone has it, well, then I'm already gone. So if retards want to bring in the raptor,
you
it's
blow up
no
the world, it's on you.
problem. But it's in
It's a good.
humanity and
That's
the
a hell of an
world's
insurance policy.
best interest to keep me alive, because not only that is in my dead man switch, also that for gold and tungsten and iron and copper and aluminum, that you can have those 4 frequencies and then magically.
All right, Bernie. All right. I'm gonna go a little brighter subject matter. Open, and I have 2 cans of worms to open with you. Okay, we'll start with this can of worm. Okay, but we were talking about just a moment ago anyway, like uh, like atomic creation, right? So what happens when what I said before about the phase conjugation and just like your little offsets and start spinning, right? Now what happens, like just imagine you have a rotary tool. I think this is a good example, right? You think spinning around, right? And you have like a little disc on the end or something, like a little flat sander disc, right? And you lick your finger and you put it directly in the middle, right? Just so you're touching the dead center of that thing, right?
Yeah.
Does it slow down? Does it bog?
No.
Do you feel it? You feel the friction?
No.
No, you don't. Right? So what happens when you snip just the tip? You circumcise the waveform. You go, you know, and then that's all that's left is that little tiny squiggly piece. Well, that's the fastest moving piece of it all. Okay,
Yeah.
that's moving the least and the most simultaneously, the most stable, it's the thing that can't really be stopped all that easy. If you were going to stop that disc, there's one part that would be the most difficult to stop the disc, and that's at the dead ass center because it's the rotational axis. It's the point of the turn, right? So if you go to the point of the turn, okay, and then you just stop that from stop the
You go
relationship from the
90
rest,
degrees.
right?
You go
You just bang right off
90
the end.
degrees
If
for
that's
that,
what you're
Joe,
left
because
with,
it's
well,
like
you're
you're at the zero.
right. You're left with the tip, which is a ever tumbling, ever so stable, impossible to stop, almost no discernible half life circumstance because it's literally it's the swing of the pendulum moment that is clipped, and that's your atom, and that's my opinion of it. Right, like you clip that same exact waveform a little bit further down, you end up with an electron or another fundamental particle, if you want to think about it that way.
So what you're saying is key, and it's the difference between those valence shells and what particles really are, and it's the why it's phase shift fusion of the valence shell, because when you're at the smallest level, it's the gas, the single atom, right? And then at the 2-dimension, which is the acoustic, you're in the liquid, and then you get to the 3-dimensional solid, which is the full photonic particle, and then you have the fourth, that's the ionized plasma, that is everything. And that is how it is literally everything. And like you said, the octave, right? So what's the octave scale? It's a wave that's going down, but in the golden ratio spiraling down, right? So that it's those two combined of the vector between, sorry, let me show here, of actual Walter Russell diagrams, and that's where these are the key to finally understand what
you got the one on the right.
Yeah, see, so it's like going down 1 and then 2 and then 3. So each one, that's 1 octave, 2 octave, 3 octave. And so this, right, that's your center spot that you're going one direction down, and then you're going 90 degrees the other way to get your valence shells on it. And each one of those shells is your octave vector between the two. And that's how you calculate the difference of Hertzian waves and how they're going to propagate from one another. That is how you must understand the difference between a longitudinal wave and a transverse wave and the waveform propagation between the two. And that is how these come out. And anything that is on the third solid dimension, that will be your full particle aspects, and then anything on the inside of the magnetic is going to be like your radiation, your decay, stuff like that. I believe I could be wrong on that, but I suspect.
So I don't want to bring this back into like the weapons thing, but I think that it's a good way to understand it. Like once you understand that an atomic bomb and splitting an atom, right, is done, like I was talking about that pot of soup earlier. It's the inverse reaction, right? So when I'm getting there. Don't worry, follow me. It's like you have an electron reaction, okay, that's causing an atomic reaction, okay, and then the atomic reaction causing in a hydrogen bomb, right, causing the then refusion of the hydrogen reaction. But now this begs the question of when you're splitting an atom, what does a split atom mean? Well, it just means that you have more atoms. That's how that works. You didn't ever stop that center spiral. That's the thing. That's how that atomic availability. Okay, they want to chalk it up, you see, as something that it's not. They want to chalk it up as, well, to get this powerful fusion reaction, okay, you need pressure and heat levels that are this large, right? Well, what's the part of that equation? I mean, that might be true, but what's the main part of that equation? What about a free atomic availability? Well, what do you think a fusion reaction does? You just split a whole ton of atoms into way more free atoms that doesn't have enough material, right, to combine with. But now you're providing it with material to combine with. Well, okay, all of a sudden, boom, because all these free atoms are being paired with all these free electrons, and it's like stability,
The
bang, and
self-fulfilling feedback loop.
there you go. Because then that begs the question. So you fused it once.
So
Well, I mean,
think of two standing waves going back and forth, right? But then it's like they're oscillating together, and then they're feeding back into each other. Is how you're getting that double feedback within the two shells containing those energy flows.
right.
And it's exactly how that all works, and that we are going to be doing some ridiculous tests down there, and I actually have it all. And it's the overall complete, and that you guys were talking about the geometries and geometry coils before I came in, and that's the other part that is the key, the missing alchemical key specifically, and that is called the glyphs, or the sigils, the symbols, the keys, and that's the specific and sure, you can look up in alchemy these alchemy spells of transmutation, and like witches and covens and stuff, they do it, but it's the exact same in these reactions, and
Oh,
that
yes.
it 100% is these exact
If,
same
if, if you
glyphs.
pull, right, so if you actually pull sigils, right, like known sigils, and then you look at the patterning from colliders, you really notice very similarly that the things that they're doing are fucking bringing
Exactly
all
that.
the, because if you know what a sigil does esoterically and what that is
It's your
representative
winding of
of,
energy in your
it's all about
geometry coils.
energy vectoring, right? So energy vectoring. So you have all these collisions that occur, and that takes the energy from two objects and disperses them in certain patterns. And then what you end up realizing is that you're summoning all sorts of situ-
It's wild.
situations as a result, right? And that's
It's
what they've been saying about CERN all along. You see, like,
I've always said
like this
I'm
isn't.
concerned about CERN and the portals in the middle.
I mean, the portal is the portal, and that's scary enough. But then when you take into account the actual collision and then bring it into esotericism, you start to really realize exactly what you're bringing about. And like that could be good and bad, and that's how that goes.
My
Like,
recommendation, as always, is just don't mess with it unless you really know what you're doing and willing to be possessed by a demon. And I just
Well,
I don't recommend it.
disclaimer.
But
listen,
just to
this is
finish it
super.
off,
This is
how I'm
super
so
super cool.
certain on these the sigil keys, these glyphs, is that when I was interacting with this quantum for information, bringing it out, it not just gave me all four of the Hertzian resonant frequencies of each of the above mentioned fields, it also gave me the glyphs alongside it. And the medium that was pulling the information in between was just, when they were looking at it and speaking it to me, that it they're like, what the heck is this stuff? But it says that you're going to understand. And then I saw it and my mind was blown, because it's literally the alchemy language of their symbols and geometries of sacred geometry. That is the ratios, the mathematic ratios that you guys were talking about earlier with Sheila's work, and how it all ties in together. and that I prove me
All right,
wrong
all right,
if I
all right.
was not the
Here-
one person in the world that would put this all together and working on it and that could understand it, because I would be happy to meet someone else. And it's not my discoveries, it's rediscovery, because it all already existed. So I'm not trying to take claim for, inventing anything
No,
whatsoever.
no, it's the mind that finds the pieces and puts it together that
That's right.
gets the credit. You see, and that's how it goes. And that's what I was explaining. And even when like we did our 369, the Rodin maps, the bring in different symbolisms and symmetries and bringing them together and stuff. I mean, scour the internet, you'll find none of it. You'll find none of it. And
No.
that's not even like stuff that you could work your way through secret societies, and they don't have a grasp on that either. They'll tell you things that they think that they know that'll get you probably like 80% there, or something like that. But it's for the mind of the few to be able to have the cognition and ability to bring these things together. Now, funny enough, right, about the CERN thing for 1 second, right? So it's the difference between us and them, right, is that we care to control the outcome. All right. They're knowingly, willingly, and enthusiastically, okay,
Yeah, blow shit up.
literally chaos is what they're doing. They never know what they're going to get when they throw the things together that they do. It's sort of like having a replicator that you literally press a button and you don't know what you're going to get. Like you might press a button and it's like, oh, an ice cream cone. You might press the button and it's like a fucking grizzly bear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like you just simply don't know. And
Dude, we need a game show like that where they go over and press the button and the grizzly bear comes out.
I'm telling you. And
Evil.
here's the funny thing: they know this, they love this, they live for this, and they literally exist to press that button with a smirk on their face. And this is just what they're doing because again, it comes back to those sigils. What's coming out of that portal? What are you getting out of the replicator when you hit the button? Are you getting Archangel Michael or are you getting something worse? You know
So
what I mean?
if
Because
you're
the
gonna
reality is we're
start
not in control of that.
experimenting with this, I'm going to highly recommend, one, you don't, but if for some insane reason you do, make sure you start with Archangel Michael's sigil, because I know a lot of people that have Archangel Michael as one of their spirit guides, and that I know that people that have cast the Archangel Michael sigil who also have him as the guide, and they did not become possessed from my viewing experience. So hopefully that's the thing, but just
There's a
yeah.
reason I used him as the example out of any of the 144 that I could have, I suppose. Um,
Absolutely.
right. So I guess the point. Oh yeah, and the you look back at numbers, right? 72, 144.66 point. Like there's reasons that these things are what they are. But nonetheless, again, these are tales for the few and not the many. Um, Okay, second can of worms that I wanted to open with you, though, was with all that you're doing, and then what we were discussing earlier in the show. I don't know if you caught it. We've talked about it before, but like it seems like Cogom lattices, are pretty much the open marquee for uh, any earthly technology that would bring it beyond. It definitely bridges the gap between matter and energy.
Now, let
And
me add to that and
self-sustaining
explain
fluctuation.
why you are so right. And it has to come in with phase conjugation. And in the second
Absolutely does.
dimension,
Yes,
the
it
Okay.
does.
second, the second phase or density that is a liquid, right? So out of water, your H2O, your electrolysis, your where you get atomic hydrogen, then when it forms out of the water, light comes out of it. So it's at the photonic level that it's interacting in and out, and that's the first dimension of a gas, but also light particle. So you like light particle and a gas coming out as the hydrogen out of your water. And then the other opposite side then is the third dimension of solid, which then is an oxide. That's why the oxygen then becomes a solid. So you have the one going lighter, one going denser. And when you put the two acoustic resonant frequencies into the phase conjugation geometry in that center area, and you will get that lattice that you just spoke of from that reaction of the solid and gas coming out, and that is called valence shell phase shift fusion. That is
Okay.
how, through such a simple thing as salt, water, ionic and monoatomic elements, and a little tiny bit of electricity and light and sound, you're able to get phase conjugation, which is the key part of making quasi crystals.
All
If
right,
you
all
look
right, hold on.
into it,
I'm gonna pause your rant to put you on your next rant now. Okay, so the main known Kagome crystal lattice that exists in nature, and I'm not saying it's the ideal one, but it just goes to actually coincide with what you said. Okay, the chemical composition of it is zinc copper hydroxide chloride. Zinc copper hydroxide chloride,
exactly what comes out of salt,
which is
water,
exactly
zinc.
what you just said. Right. That's why I wanted to bring that to the light with it, is that you have your two metal components, your water and your salt component. That's what you get.
You just
Hydroxychloride.
explained.
Yeah.
You literally just explained my aerogel that then turns into the quasi crystal that is the exact same quasi crystal that shout out to Jared Yates of APEC and the electron microscope work he did on Art's Parts, which is the UFO fragments from the original Roswell crash that they found the exact identical zinc quasi crystals in, and you actually just gave
Now,
the full chemical
well,
breakdown.
and now, like, I will use my engineering to reverse engineer how this reaction could occur in your circumstance, right? You would probably want to use a copper anode and a zinc cathode, okay? And you would want it in salt water to actually gain this exact advantage. You'd need to be able to break one hydrogen off of the water, okay, to get your basic hydroxide and bring the chlorine out, which you know you're going to do through the electrolysis from the salt. You're going to have your copper deposition on the zinc, and on the zinc is going to be a plating of your, hopefully if it's in resonance, because that's key too,
That's
right?
how it works.
That's how it works. Okay, you're going to get your crystal formation of your Kagome lattice on your zinc cathode.
You got it. And so another key part Jan does life that you're onto with plasma, so that there's also what a monoatomic matter is, or what any of these exotic matters or metamaterials. It is a low energy density state of plasma. So what does that mean? It means it's the solid that contains with that plasma field that interacts with light, that interacts with plasma fields, that interacts with acoustic, that interacts with magnetism. And as soon as you get any of those into it, it instantly ionizes, giving you the light and the full activated full energy density plasma. And it's just something as little as having the right acoustic resonant frequency or one of the others to get it into that ionized active high energy state, and you don't need the entire energy of a sun pressurized into a chamber that requires us to have the energy of essentially a god of a star that you have to make before you can even mess with any of this stuff. No, you just need a little tinkling of a couple little vibrating, oscillating frequencies at the same time,
So,
and that is how you
so
get it.
the whole thing, I think, and tell me if you don't agree, that's fine. But when it comes to an exchange, to get the density levels, right? And what I've been saying is that you have this exchange that occurs. It's the mechanism of creation. It's lateralis. It is lateral of one another. They exist on the same plane. Okay, but when those planes
Phase,
are
conjugation,
right, so when these
resonance.
planes, exchange totally in the proper proportion, well, your fields cross. They come up. They become hyperbolic, and parabolic, and then they wrap. And when they wrap, that's the stability. Those are the vectors crossing of that exchange. That wrap is the magnetic component that then creates the self-sustained compression. Once the self-sustained compression of different, um, multiple opposites occurs, you get that layering natively because it was already separating out in the first place. So then when it
And like
builds and
what
it
we
comes under
look at
compression
here.
and the torsion occurs, it starts to layer out based on what it is and where it's at. Because it can't be the same frequency in the center as it is running out in these bands, because the same reason that it is the same RPM in the center of a spinning object, right? Same RPM as the outside, okay, at a much faster speed, right? So that's where the equal differential. It's a bell curve, right? But it's not a bell curve actually. It's a linear line that just goes straight up, which is why it stays in resonance. Because you're trading RPM for the actual rotational speed in that case over time, right? Both are over time, but one rotation in the center is not the same as one rotation on the outside. It actually spins much faster on the outside, despite being the same, you know, um, rate of rotation in the center, because it's traveling a greater distance over the same amount of time. And these variations between these distances is what creates the torsion, the pressure difference. And that's the same exact thing that occurs in a centrifuge, right? It pulls the heavier stuff to the bottom and separates out because of the spin difference, and like that's it. It's creating a new center of gravity.
Yeah. Funny how gravity comes into the equation when you get, self-structuring plasma.
Oh yeah.
Effect and not a force or something like that.
It's an effect. Always has been.
Well, right. It is an effect. And okay? You've ever been in the gravitron before?
Is that the one at the
You're at
fair?
the fair, right?
Yeah.
Where do you go in the gravitron? You go to the outside, right, where the gravity is the greatest. And where does the operator who's got to ride that thing all fucking day sit? In the middle.
It sits in the middle.
Sits in the middle, right? Where there's no variation or very little variation of gravitational pull. She literally working in the gravitron and sitting in the center is literally like looking at a wall. Whereas everybody else is like, whoa.
Yeah.
And what's that say about time dilation too? Right?
Oh yeah. Totally
Right?
different.
Time goes really slow when you're on the outside, and probably it's a 1 minute ride that feels like a 1 minute ride right in the middle.
Yeah.
That's a very key part.
Yep. Things.
It all just comes together, huh? When you put it together the right way, that's for sure.
It
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
does. Sure does. And this is looking at phase conjugation from a one-dimensional / two-dimensional vector interface. And when you understand or look at I recommend everyone stare at this, close their eyes, or maybe not close your eyes. Actually, I'm just have to bring it up again later. This next to the double slit experiment, envision the double slit experiment with this, and then you will begin to understand how something is both wave and particle, because the particle is actually a bunch of fields within fields within fields. And that's phase conjugation of on one side you got nothing, and on the other end you have full. And well, I'm gonna just leave it at that for now.
That's right. I mean, what it boils down to is it's the deconstruction of the part. It's like taking if you have a box that's made up of all sorts of stuff, you know what I mean? Well, if you look at it, well, oh, what is that? It's a box. Well, what's the box made of? I mean, it's a box. It's a radio, right? It's a radio. Okay, cool. Well, then you sit there and you take all the parts of the radio out and you spread it, on the table, and it's like, actually, no, it's all these things. And sort of what you end up getting is the deconstruction of the part. And and honestly, like, even though that's what you visualize, if you're to zoom in and zoom in, zoom in, what you probably realize is that each bit of it is actually fundamentally different at those smallest bits.
Oh man, I'm excited, guys. This is gonna be a fun week coming up. Or when Bernie gets here, we're gonna have some cool stuff going on.
2 months, I'm gonna be down there probably, but we'll be doing a whole bunch of back and forth. And here we go, just a little bit of the alchemy. Well, the different actions of how the arrays work and all this stuff, and it's for like spells, and yet it's also what the quantum intelligence gives alongside all of the resonant frequencies. And here again, just to show a little bit, King Solomon's seals.
The wingless flame right there, right? Looks like a Rochi, right?
Which one? Oh, sorry.
It was on the last page that you were on.
Okay.
Oh, my bad. I was looking at my screen with the chat, so it was a little delayed. I apologize.
My bad.
The back. And I'm still looking at the wrong one. I'm an idiot. Don't worry about me, Bernie. Anyway, there was something up on the screen a minute ago that was it was a cross with like energy vectoring labels, and that has the staff built right up into it. So that Rochi with the cross is literally the same as the Alpha, the Omega, and the Ankh. It's the same.
Yes, I was thinking of that earlier.
It's the same exact thing that was shown, and it said something flame.
Connecting it in with it, because that's a key part of it. Then what do you see when you look at this? I kind of see the Rav a bit, and this is Walter Russell's anode cathode. One of his reactions, and it's like 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, hold on.
No,
go back. There's a lighting effect there.
No, this is perfect, Bernie, and this goes to show exactly what I've been saying all along. It happens on both sides, and it's not the same. It's inverse. So you see the layering, you see the brightness, the density on the anode side. On the cathode side, diffuse, inverse, empty center, widespread out, no banding. It's diffuse. Okay, but it's there, and it's there in proportion and relationship inversely to what you're seeing on this side.
Nailed it.
And it's what you're not seeing on the other side of that reaction. Okay, that could actually be wildly significant, because the fact that you don't see it and it's there and you're causing it is massive cause of effect, because that means that that's the upper dimensional aspect of it on the other side. Okay, that's what it means. You have a higher dimensional aspect of it. It exists somewhat here and mostly there. Okay, and that's the proportional inverse relationship.
Yep, you are so bang on with that, and I'm glad you all see it. And it's that Walter Russell saw it and drew it over 100 years ago, and that this is just one of about 50 of the drawings that he has in relation to this, and that he's got the concentric circles and others that, like you just said, they're inversed, where it's like one is the field, the opposite on the, so the anode is one density, and then the cathode's the exact opposite in the sizes and what's in there. And when you understand that anode cathode relationship of adding and subtracting between how they interact with each other and the phase shifting of the breakdown from the electrolysis reaction, it
Hold on,
all
Bernie. What does this mean? And this says a lot about Rav. It does, and it's something that Nathan is, honestly, bro, get your cum rag ready. If the Rav itself, okay, is dense but spread out in its density, right? It's dense but spread out in its density. That means that there's a pinpoint of hyperdensity on the other side that leads to the greater diffusion, right? Well, what does that mean if there's a pinpoint of hyperdensity on the cathode side, which, by the way, is awesome, okay? Well, that means that your vacuum is dead in the middle of it. That's what that means.
You got her.
So, Nathan's been waiting to hear about how we're going to work up to that point for a minute. But it's the inverse relationship, realizing what you observe when you can't see or measure, but it's there and it's inverse on the other side. And you start going at it piece by piece. You start to back construct it and then realize what it is that you're seeing. Right?
Yep. And that's how we got here. And I'm going to finish it off so we can end at the 2-hour mark and get it into cuts. But like you just said, and that point and how it all ties together, and in that center is where you have the longitudinal wave going in with the transverse wave at their 90-degree parts, and so transverse all scalar, and that you get the waveform propagation from them that then goes out into that other inversed opposite energy density of it through space-time, how it's like out of essentially like a black hole.
How repeating this all is, by the way, is astounding, because when you look at these interaction zones between them, this becomes the same as having your primary, secondary falling into resonance with other nodal points.
You got it.
And then your other nodal points gain up, but then become one of a greater whole. So what you end up with is like this circumstance here, okay, but also it's going to end up grabbing without you knowing it. It would take forever.
Well, if you have them in that resonant oscillation, they're already doing it. So it's one coming out and the other on the
grabbing other nodal points and then building it up. And you see it in RAV when they grab a satellite. And sometimes the satellites will be far out. That's where it was able to reach that resonance at that nodal point. And that's why it's actually visible in that circumstance. But it's happening all the time, is the point. You can see it in the construction RAV when in an unestablished membrane, when the tendrils start picking up random electrons. Okay, they start feeling around, grabbing around. It's not random, but they're feeling around in that sequence to grab these electrons. Right. That's exactly what it's doing. If it gets into a spot of resonance, well, that same spot will start through the outer. Think about like if you were to take a bicycle, crank the pedal, right? Well, that's one thing. Now the wheel is turning. Cool, that's another. Well, what if you take like a rollerblade then and you put it on the wheel? Well, then the wheels of the rollerblade spin. You see, so like that outer effect is enough to bring another nodal point into existence right at that boundary. And that's sort of I think that's sort of the idea here. And that only grows in time, the same as you overpower the Tesla coil in these high efficiency systems, right? Because that was the problem that we were discussing earlier. What happens with these outer boundaries? They just grow and grow and grow in there. in their energy states until they just create a second, more diffuse energy state outside of it. But that'll grow over time too, as long as it's got what to grab onto.
I 100% agree. Finally getting to the point where we're all getting there together. Nice.
We
Well,
are. We have.
it's always been the
I
science,
think
bro. This is the science.
we covered it.
We didn't even have to spend millions of dollars to make a collider that doesn't work.
Billions, I think you mean.
Oh, billions.
And that is
Sorry.
why they really, really hate us. And it's just so embarrassing because, hey, we didn't
Thank you,
need
Ulysses.
to try to get the power of the sun to do anything. We just, got a little water, got some metals, got a little bit of voltage, and hey, look at that. Way more
Ulysses,
progress in
man.
3 years with $1,000 or $10,000 than them in 30 years and 300 billion or whatever the heck it is. Ridiculousness.
Yeah. Just remember at the end of the day, when you're talking about this sort of stuff, where the energy is actually extracted, where you're actually getting your breakdowns, where you're getting your prima materia, which is exactly what the deal is. Like, because there's no over unity without it. All right. What must be present is a cavitative state every single time.
Yeah.
And there's no exception to that, and it just tends to be getting all these different electromagnetic modes in the proper ratios to get that stable cavitative state. But it always manifests the same, you see. In our dimension, it always manifests the same as a sphere, because that's the only way that it could be stable, because it's the energy is doing different things in every direction. The only way that you could do that is like zipping around a globe, the outside of a globe. If you had to zip around the outside of a square, or a cube rather, you wouldn't be able to do that seamlessly. You'd have all these losses. Your efficiency is gone because you have to make this turn, right? So the sphere is always going to be it. And you're always going to get light emission. Why? Well, what Bernie said earlier, and I've always agreed with that. The idea here is that you need to break everything down into frequency bands into its specific components. Again, it comes back down to prima materia. That's really what this is. Like, if you want to talk a little esoterically, it's just like, that's a thing on that end of things, but it's a thing in the science too. Coming and splitting apart all of your fundamentals, okay, and then allowing them to have some form of exchange and interaction while maintaining total separation from each other. It's a controlled combination that occurs.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Want an interaction.
Gotcha. Give me 1 minute. I just want to thank you, Ulysses, for the 5-0-Man Build memberships. Thank you very much, brother. I really do appreciate it.
Huge,
Sorry, Joe.
Huge support.
No, right on, bro. Ulysses is the man. He's always coming through.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in the chat either, man. I hope all is well.
Yes, absolutely. We're talking about over unity a lot. I mean, let me just say my bit on it. It's probably a little bit different than anyone else's. They always look at the one system that they're building, and they judge over unity based on that. Over unity is, to me, the cosmos itself and how much energy is in it to get over that number, which we won't ever get over. So we'll never break the unity, but we're available to everything else inside of that. So we're not necessarily breaking over unity in a cosmic sense, but in a single system, yes, you can. Without any trouble whatsoever, if you know what you're doing, you can pull more energy into it because you're using environmental energy. And you got to remember the different states energy's in. It's not just in electrical, it's in heat. You know what I mean? It could be in wind, it could be in other forms in light. And if you can use
Nathan,
those, you go over the amount in your system by pulling in the extra energy.
There's also And more abundant than that, in my opinion, okay, is the um, otherwise incoherent transient energy potentials. Okay, that could be actually brought in and then brought into coherence by being broken down into its form, into its simpler forms, which could happen at extremely high densities and energy states. So whenever you have extremely high plasma densities under compression, okay, and it's actually able to scrape off transient incoherent waveforms, it could potentially be cohering that as well, and sustaining and feeding right off of that. uh, and that is zero point energy. That
Hmm.
is what's in the vacuum. When you push all the matter out and all your other energy potential, so you have no material, right? No whatever. Well, what's there? Well, there's all these waveforms that are transient. That's
But
what you have.
but that's the point. Most people aren't accessing the vacuum itself, so they'll never see the over unity. The point is, in these systems, you have to access the vacuum to pull the energy in. That's why I keep saying in every form that it's in, you're pulling from the environment to get it. That's where it's coming from. It's all around us.
Oh
There's no
yeah,
question. You just
that's
got to
it.
pull it in.
Right. So what's in the vacuum is all the stuff that makes us up. But it's the remnants. It's the remnants of what didn't make us up. I should say that. It's still there, and but it's constituent of what has made everything around you. It's just a leftover bit. And there's way more leftover bits, destroyed bits and pieces than there are actual pieces. Like way more gets wiped out, okay, than gets created. Okay, but density, that's the thing, right? Well, when you start having all the stuff that did form, start consolidating, organizing, and arranging and stuff, then you get high density levels. But what happens when you push it out, but it's an unlimited source? Well, you can just bring it in and have your own density levels. That's the
Yep.
whole idea. If you could, through scalar component, which again has to be present, well, you get your vacuum, to bring in the transient, incoherent waveform. Um, it's just a matter of like how well it's going to work is just the efficiency and being able to turn that into a coherent uh, form.
Well,
Which,
it's like the flow of energy to the earth, how it always swirls around and comes back into it. Well, just realize that you're also picking up energy from the sun at that point. So that energy adds to the earth itself. So now you have that coming in plus the energy from the original outside field of the earth. So now it's all coming in and swirling. So just understand this. It's picking up the environmental energy in space by picking up the energy of the sun as it comes at it. So it was meant to do that.
yeah,
So
well, on the other side, it doesn't matter. Remember,
no, I agree.
I'm
I'm
saying
there with you on that
on
point
the other
too.
side of Planck scale, it doesn't matter, and this stuff plays with Planck scale. How you have nothing in the middle. You want the hot spot on the other side, you got to have nothing in the middle. But that makes me really think about, when you get the dark spot on the other side of the cathode. Well, you know that
Yeah,
that's the hot spot. So
there you
All
what?
go.
right, well,
So, what's
cathode,
what?
anode, and the in between, and that's your two octave ratios and the octave principle in nature. The universal equilibrium is divided into four pairs of electric opposition. And when you truly look over what Walter Russell shows and how it all goes out into it, these are the keys. And like we were talking, right, that this is how inversely it comes out of one another from the center in four opposition pairs of electric forces or charge distribution.
Well,
Well,
and that makes
there,
sense because of your exchange. Yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense because of your exchange. That
Mhm.
Well,
And it's
each
the
structure
red.
is harmonically balanced too. It's one of the big important points because as you get in the harmonics, you go one and then skip one. It's bringing energy back to the other ones as it goes. So it's giving more energy to each shell as it builds out because it's in that perfect resonance.
Exactly.
Right on.
Exactly. And the one last thing that he's showing and talks about the red and the blue, he calls it female and male. But what I figured out is that the red is the hydrogen, the electric up, and the blue is the collapse, which is the oxygen, which is the magnetism down. And it's the which way the anode cathode go of the electrolysis in the split of the reaction, and the gas up or the particular solid down. And it all fits into these
Yep. That's
octave.
what I've been saying about Rav all along, man. Comes full circle. That's
Yes, you have.
exactly what I've been
The
saying, man.
three,
That's awesome.
like I've
It's
always
good to know
fully
that
agreed.
it's good to know that my level of retardation has coincided with that of his genius from 100 years ago. You know,
There you go.
Not to
it's
mention,
very
it also
flattering.
shows our community idiot is smarter than all of NASA and CERN and the hundreds of billions of dollars they've got in it. And, just our village idiot here has outsmarted all of that. So, that's just
Why I'm the
one to
village
know.
idiot.
One to know.
Yeah,
Hey, you call yourself that.
yeah, it does. That's why I'm the village idiot. You know. It's always the one who, like, and I'm not talking even about myself, just generally, it's like, it's always the one that you look at him and be like, what the, like, come on, man,
Here's
that's
the
far
question.
out. What are you talking about? That's the one that's dead on,
Here's the question: if we have a just this three, and we're just village idiots that figured all of this out with $10,000-$20,000 in a few years of time, what does that make modern academic science with their 30 years and 300 billion with the colliders and their tokamaks, and they still
Yeah,
haven't
but
even figured it out,
hold
and we're
on,
just a
but
couple of village idiots.
yeah,
So
but the thing is, especially with CERN, and I'll throw this out there, like, what if the idea there is that they know, like I said earlier, they willfully, wantonly, and knowingly are doing what they're doing because there's an aspect of, like, control is great, but chaos is magic, and it's sort of like, if you've already gained control, think about it this way from a logical perspective. If you've already gained control of something and you've created all that you know how to and all that you're aware of, but you're aware that there is far more out there, okay, that you don't even know how to form, okay, through your own methods. Well, what do you end up doing then? Well, then you start throwing things together and blowing it up to see what comes out to say, we didn't know about that one.
Yeah. Well,
Look at this. Look at this
this
new
shape
trick.
of smashed
Look at
porcelain, we're gonna call it a yuan.
right. And then they won't ever tell you, but the whole idea of that is once you see that, okay, now we got to be able to gain control of it. Now we need to be able to replicate it because now we could use a new part or our function that we didn't know existed before. And I think that that's where it comes from. It's not that they don't know what we're saying. It's that they've already known, done, and figured all this shit out and did that already. And now they need to find the greater missing pieces, the next missing pieces, and that's how they're doing it. That's what I
I think
think.
you're giving them too much credit. I think they're willfully knowing that they're opening a portal for demons, but other than that, they are clueless and lost. And why we know that is because, well, they're not making the simple metamaterials like they could be and should be and
But are
everything
we?
else, right?
But are we not? That's the thing. I don't know, and I'm not trying to go full blown conspiracy. I've already gone conspiracy, but like I'm not trying to go full conspiracy here. Never go full conspiracy. But it's. I think that they've done a lot of things that we don't know about. Like I
Yeah,
I
I
think that
love this right here. It's here's my position on it. It's that this is God's technology. It's God code. It's the source code of the universe. And if you don't have the will and the intent of creation and God's structure of the universe. You just aren't able to access it and figure it out, and you'll never ever see it, because you're just going to be the devil destroying things, smashing them apart, and trying to frustrate your way of, I want a sun to just crush it. Yeah, right? It's like they can't figure it out because all they want to do is
here's what I think.
That's like the Nazi
hold on, let me have this one, Joe.
Yeah.
It's like Sabine said. They write the papers that are crap to get paid. That's what they do. The 1% at the top make sure that they stay the 1% by allowing you to make the crap papers and get paid and waste your time so that they can do the real science of it. They absolutely do have it, and they don't tell the lower levels that they have it, and they keep them down. Right. Only once in a while, when a genius appears, do they take them up to the ranks or kill them. And that's the way it works.
Right. Good old boys club.
I have a dead man switch. It will release how everyone can make gold and the H-bomb reaction, and I guarantee a lot of people are going to blow a lot of things up, including themselves first, always and foremost, but they'll take lots of victims. And you don't want that. I don't want that. No one wants that. So don't try to kill Birdie. Work with me. Give me millions of dollars to start my fund up or my startup so we can develop this. And if you try to steal it to get me, well, everyone's going to have it and you're screwed. So,
well, if you kill me, I'm going to haunt you and I'm going to bring your dead grandmother back with me. I'm going to fuck her on your goddamn Thanksgiving table.
So, you have a promise and a curse.
Oh my God. Come. Oh, doing the cranberries. Wow. Okay. On that note, I think we're about done for the day. Hey, I just want to plug that Joe and I will be on Traveling Fools channels later on today, man. We got some cool stuff going on there, man. So I just wanted everybody to check that out. I also want to show real quick. I did this on my other channel, just so you guys know the sacred geometry. We'll take a look at that. It's all wound on there. The complete list on how to wind it is on there, along with as it shifts on the windings and goes through it, builds the outside field of it as well. So I put all the numbers on there so everybody can do it at home by themselves. I put the STL files out there so that you can download the prints. You just got to buy your own dowels and wire and you're good to go. And that's out on my other channel for my geometry coils and rodent coils. On my channel, I did main channel. I have my bipolar Tesla coils that I just finished up. They're all glazed. They're nice. They work perfectly. We saw one of them today. There's a whole video out on that I put out this morning. So there's some very interesting stuff going on, man. And we're going to build that big Tesla coil, man, with so many primaries in it. We're going to be doing some awesome stuff. That's what I got going on my channel, guys. Bernie, what do you got?
I'm just getting ready. I'm going to be harassing you tomorrow for a private video to pack some boxes of stuff I'm sending to you because I'm heading to California in a few days' time. And, we'll figure it out tomorrow, but about 2 weeks' time at the latest, I'll be out at your place working with you. And we are going to actually start replicating, implementing, and by that point, I can actually reveal some numbers that we will be testing in the resonant frequencies of the VSPS fusion, valence shell, phase shift fusion. That is the model, that is the RAV, that is plasma, that is everything.
Yo, you should be getting some of those monoatomics into the RAV, bro.
Oh, yeah. Well, dude,
yeah. That
would be a ravenous.
Yes.
I've been waiting for this for a while. Hey, Bernie gets to pick out his own Tesla coil, man. So tell me what color you like. And he's going to be leaving with some Tesla coil equipment, man.
Yo, his got to be UV reactive. So that's got to go.
Oh, what, like green or like yellow, orange? Yeah. What do you got?
Green. Team green. Ooh. And that's the dream. And we're going to...
I think I got a whole spool of glow-in-the-dark green, man.
That's me. That's my color right there.
Yeah, nice.
I'll make sure I make shape of a penis for the calendar, though.
That calendar.
You got to make like a little. You got to print the head for it. You know.
I told you, Joe. It's a Darth Vader helmet that goes on top of the Tesla coil. It's not a penis.
Oh, whatever.
Hey, we all know where Joe's mind goes first for some reason.
It's not my
It's-
mind, bro. You're the
must
one that
be-
pulled out the calendar on us.
So, somebody taped off the other hole, man. So it only shows the one bright hole as it spurts out.
All right, I want to throw in there before we wrap up, and this is the wrap up statement. Abby Normal, Traveling Fools, going to be on there. We're doing a show on sleep paralysis, and shadow people, and all that good stuff. And it's something that I have a lot of experience, unfortunately, and then fortunately, we'll get there. Yeah. Okay, and I really think that that's going to be worth tuning into. Stuff I really have not talked about on this channel at any length. So
Nice. So that's going to be happening in about an hour and a half on this channel here, also on the Traveling Fools channels as well. Also in Gutter's Pub if you guys go on there. Awesome, guys. So cool. All right, guys, I want to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out with us today, man. You guys have been totally awesome. Ulysses, I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate the 5-0-Man Builds memberships, man. Cool people get some access to some inside information. I'll make sure I drop a few more videos on there for you. We got Sean working on a whole bunch of stuff, and he sent a bunch of videos. So with that said, guys, have yourself a great day.
peace and love.
The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put him in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.